The identity of Jesus. That's what I want to talk to you today about. The identity of Jesus. Who is he? Who is Jesus? First, I want to start out by saying, let's look at what some people say who Jesus was. According to a study done about 2 years ago, 92% of Americans believe Jesus was a real person who actually lived. 92% believe Jesus was a real person that actually lived. 56% of Americans, now remember, we're just talking about American people here, not worldwide. 56% of Americans believe that Jesus was God, while 26% say he was only a religious or spiritual leader, kind of like Muhammad or Buddha. And 18%, they say they just don't know. They're not sure who Jesus is. 46% of Americans believe that Jesus was sinless. That's less than half of Americans believe Jesus was actually sinless. 68% of American women and 56% of American men say they have a personal relationship with Jesus. 68% of American women and 56% of American men. That's just sad. Come on, men. Come on, right? 20% of Americans believe they will either go to heaven because they simply obey the 10 Commandments, or they're just kind of a good person, or just God won't let them perish. That's 1 in every 5 Americans believe they're just going to go to heaven simply because they're a good person. I think that's kind of common in our world today, right? Be a good person, do the right things, and you can go to heaven. That's just, as we know, that's just not true. Last one I'll give you here. 15% of Americans believe they don't know what will happen to them after they die. 15% of Americans believe they don't know what will happen to them after they die. And that was a study done 2 years ago. Today, we are going to talk about who Jesus biblically was and still is today. We're going to talk about biblically who Jesus was and still is today. Number one in your notes. Jesus is the Son of Man. Jesus is the Son of Man. The Son of Man is actually mentioned 69 times in the 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. 69 times the Son of Man is mentioned. In Mark alone, the Son of Man is mentioned 14 times. 14 times in Mark alone. What we are going to attempt to do very quickly this morning, we're going to look at all 14 times the Son of Man is mentioned. Now, don't worry, I'm going to go really quick, okay? So we're not going to be here for like 2 hours doing this, all right? I'm going to do something, I do this sometimes with the youth. I'm going to do something that we call a speed reading, okay? So you're going to have to keep up, all right? You're going to have to, buckle up, keep your arms and feet inside the vehicle at all times, and make sure you're ready to get your fingers ready to flip the pages in the Bible, because we're going to go through a lot of verses, and we're going to go really, really quick. And the youth kind of make fun of me sometimes, and my wife does too, because I'm not a very good reader, actually. So I may mispronounce some things, or I may skip over some things that I can't pronounce, or I may mess up. So don't make fun of me. I'll do the best I can. My speed reading to you, it's not going to be, how many of you guys remember that, you ever remember the micro machines? Anybody remember micro machines? And they had these commercials, and this guy would read really, really, really fast. He talked really, really fast. Who remembers micro machines? Anybody? Okay, we have a few. All right, good. You'll have no clue. All right. There was this guy, and he would have these commercials, and he would speak really, 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 really fast. You couldn't understand what he was saying. I'm not going to be like that, because I'm not going to be that fast. But this is kind of what we're getting ready to go through, okay? So we're going to look at Mark, and we're going to look at the 14 times that the Son of Man is mentioned in Mark. And we're going to start in Mark 2:10. Mark 2:10. All right, I got to take a deep breath. Everybody take a deep breath real quick. We're going to go quick. All right, hold on. Gotta make sure I'm ready. All right. All right, here we go. All right, we ready? Everybody good? Mark 2:10. All right, here we go. Mark 2:10. Now, this is Jesus talking here, okay? He says, "But I want you to know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins." So he said to the man. The Son of Man. So Jesus is talking about his authority here. And he refers to himself, which happens often, as the Son of Man, okay? Going to Mark 2:28. Mark 2:28. Down there a little bit, all right? You may not even have to flip the page on this one. All right, Mark 2:28. so the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. So this is Jesus once again talking, okay, and talking about how the Son of Man himself, referring to himself as the Son of Man, is talking about the Sabbath, okay? We're going to flip a couple pages, Mark 8. Go to Mark 8, flip a couple. And we're going to go to verse 31. Mark 8, 31. All right? Jesus is going to talk here about his death, okay? He then began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and after 3 days rise again. He spoke plainly about this, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But when Jesus turned and looked at his disciples, he rebuked Peter. "Get behind me, Satan," he said. "You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." So Jesus, once again, Son of Man is mentioned, and he's talking about his death. Mark 8:38. All right, down a little bit. Mark 8:38. And once again, Jesus talking, "If anyone is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will be ashamed of them when he comes in the Father's glory with the holy angels." Okay, so once again, Jesus speaking about judgment at this point, okay? Mark 9:9, we're speeding up a little bit here. Mark 9:9, "As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus gave them orders not to tell anyone what they had seen until the Son of Man had risen from the dead." So Jesus talking about rising from the dead, predicting that he's going to rise from the dead. Mark 9:12. Okay, Jesus, once again talking, replied, "To be sure, Elijah does come first and restore all things. Why then it is written that the Son of Man must suffer much and be rejected." Okay, so Jesus, once again, talking about how he's going to have to suffer, predicting things again. Mark 9, which one are we on? 31. Mark 9:31. All right, moving quickly. Here we go. All right, because he was teaching his disciples, he said to them, Jesus talking again, "The Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men. They will kill him, and after 3 days, he will rise." Once again, Jesus predicting his death and rising from the dead. Moving over to Mark 10:32. Almost done. Hang in there. Almost done. Mark 10:32. They were on their way up to Jerusalem, with Jesus leading the way, and the disciples were astonished, while those who followed were afraid. Again, he took the 12 aside and told them what was going to happen. "We are going up to Jerusalem," he said. Jesus talking again. "And the Son of" who? Man, there we go, right? "The Son of Man will be delivered over to the chief priests and the teachers of the law. They will condemn him to death and will hand him over to the Gentiles." So, once again, Jesus talking about his death and how he's going to be handed over. All right, Mark 10:45, moving right over. "For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." Once again, Jesus referring to himself as the Son of Man and how he's going to be crucified and rise, okay? Mark 13:26. You're doing good. Keep it up. Here we go. All right, Mark 13:26. Almost done. All right. "At that time, people will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory." All right, Jesus speaks of his return. Mark 14:21. And this one is just kind of buy one, get one free here because we're going to do it twice, all right? So you get a double here, right? 14:21. All right? "The Son of Man will go just as it is written about him. But woe to that man who betrays the Son of Man. It would be better for him if he had not been born." Jesus speaking of his betrayal, okay? Mark 14:41. We got two more. Almost done. 14:41. "Returning the third time, he said to them, 'Are you still sleeping and resting? Enough. The hour has come. Look, the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners.'" So Jesus speaks of his arrest. And last one, 14:62. 14:62. Jesus talking again. "I am," says Jesus, "and you will see the Son of" who? Man. Nice, good. "Sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on a cloud of heaven." Jesus speaks of sitting on the right side of God. Whew, there we go. We got through all 14. That wasn't bad, right? That wasn't bad. I got one more? Okay. Do I? I don't know. Okay, all right. I'm sorry. All right, here, 15:39. Thank you. All right. I thought we were done. All right, here we go. And when the Citron who stood there in front of Jesus saw how he died, he said, surely this man was the Son of God. Oh, that's a tricky one. Interesting. Huh. All right, anyways. All right, so we got through all those verses. And as you can tell, Jesus refers to himself over and over as the Son of who? Man, right? Oh, as the Son of Man. So, why is Jesus called the Son of Man? The common understanding is that Son of God implies his deity, which means God or divine state, which it does, and that the Son of Man implies his humanity, which it does too. He was a Son of Man, that is, a human being, and he is the Son of God, in that he has always existed as the eternally begotten one who comes forth from the Father forever. He always has, and he always will. He is the second person of the Trinity with all the divine nature fully in him. He was conceived of the Holy Spirit and the Virgin Mary. Thus, he is human, fully human. So he is divine and he is human. Two natures, one person. See, Jesus had to be human. So he had to come to this earth in human form. And he had to be human because he had to experience a lot of the things that we experience. And he had to experience those things because Jesus had to die on the cross. And he had to die on the cross because he had to rise 3 days later. And he had to do those things to save us. And he knew that. And he knew that. So Jesus is the Son of Man. In your notes, this refers to Jesus in human form, how he must be denied by humans and die a horrible death on the cross, then rise from the dead to save the world. I think it's important to note, too, Jesus didn't have to do any of that. He chose to do that for us. Jesus could have got out at any time. He could have just bailed out at any time. But he chose not to. He chose to come here to earth as a human. He chose to live a sinless life. He chose to experience some of the things that we've experienced. Sadness, losing loved ones. He chose to do those things, feel those things. And then he chose to be arrested and die a horrible death, beaten, crucified, and then he chose to rise again. All that he chose to do. And he chose to do that for all of us and all of humanity. That's pretty awesome. Jesus is the Son of Man. Number 2 in your notes. Number 2, the identity of Jesus. Who is Jesus? Well, we know Jesus is the Son of Man. Jesus is also the Son of God. Jesus is also the Son of God. Let's look at Mark 4:35. And I love this story. Mark 4:35. I'm going to try. I got the microphone here, so I'm going to try to maneuver a little bit because I like to not just stand back there, but I'll do the best I can here. All right, Mark 4:35. We're going to look through 41, 35. Here we go. That day when evening came, he said to his disciples, now he is Jesus, okay? Jesus says to his disciples, let's go over to the other side, okay? So Jesus is, they're basically here on one piece of land. And when he says the other side, there's this body of water, okay? And he wants to go to the other side of the body of water because there's land over there, okay? So we're here, all right? He's with his disciples, and he says, hey, guys, let's go over here. Let's go to this other side of the water, okay? So that's where we're at right now. Verse 36, leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him, okay? So picture this, Jesus with his disciples, and obviously there's a crowd there, there's other people, all right? And he's like, hey, guys, let's let's go over there. Let's cross the water. Let's go over there. And of course, the disciples are like, okay, let's do it. So they get in the boat, and there are a couple boats, all right? Get in the boat, and they make their way across the water, leaving the crowds behind, okay? So the crowd's back here. They're just maybe trying to escape a little bit, get away a little bit, all right? So they're going across. 37, a furious squall came up. What's a squall? A storm, okay? So we got a storm that comes up, okay? So we got this storm that arises, all right? And the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. Okay, so Jesus is here with his disciples. Crowd's here. Jesus says, hey, let's get in our boats. Let's go over here to the other side of the water. So Jesus and his disciples get in the boat. They're making their way across to the other side, right? All of a sudden, this storm breaks out. And this isn't just like a little storm, okay? This is a pretty major storm, okay? It's so major that it says the waves broke over the boat so it was nearly swamped, okay? Waves broke over the boat, so it's nearly swamped. So this isn't like just like a little shower. This isn't like just a little, thing going on. This is a pretty big storm, okay? So waves are coming. Water's probably getting in the boat, right? His disciples are probably like trying to get stuff out of the boat, with buckets or whatever because the boat's swamped, okay? So it's not a little storm. It's a pretty major storm. All right, I love this part here. Here we go. Ready? Jesus was in the stern. Now, I'm not a boatsman. The stern's the front, right? Is that right? Is the stern the front of the boat? Anybody know? Yeah? Yeah, the back. It's the back. It's the back of the boat? Front of the boat. It's the front of the boat. Okay, it's somewhere in the boat, okay? So the stern, Jesus is there, okay? Like I said, I'm not a boatsman, so I'm not sure where the stern is, but he's in the boat, okay? All right, you guys don't really know either. But anyways, okay. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. Okay, that just for me is really funny. Okay, because here's his disciples, here's Jesus. Jesus says, let's go to the other side of this body of water. They get in the boat. They're going across. The storm blows up, okay? Waves are crashing in. His disciples are probably panicking a little bit. And they're probably like, we're throwing water out. Stuff's going everywhere. Probably, maybe, I don't know, fish are flying through the air. I don't know. So they're trying to get this water out. And then all of a sudden, they're probably like, where's Jesus at? And there he is, sleeping. We don't know, but front or back of the boat. Sleeping, and I love how it says in my Bible, on a cushion. Okay, so he's not just, he's taking a nap. All right, he's just relaxing. And it's so relaxed, he's doing it on a cushion. Okay, so he's got this cushion, he's very relaxed. Okay, just taking a nap while all this other stuff's going on, okay? All right, here we go. All right, so picture that. That's where we're at right now. Okay, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" So the disciples are trying to get all this stuff out. They're like, where's Jesus at? This was his idea anyways, right? We were supposed to go over here, and this is his idea. Now the storms come up, and all of a sudden, they're like, where's Jesus? There he is. He's sleeping over there. All right? So he's sleeping. So they say, hey, wake up. You got us into this mess. This was your idea. What's happening? Help us, right? So that's where they're at. Whew. All right, here we go. All right? So you got to picture that. Okay, so lots going on. All right? Storm's going on. All right? And then they say, don't you care if we drown? We're going down, Jesus. Look, there's water in the boat. We're starting to sink. It's covering everything. We're going down. Wake up. Why are you napping, right? And then here we go. He got up. Jesus rebuked the wind and said to the waves, okay, this to me is really funny, okay? Probably wouldn't have been if I was there at the time, but now it is, okay? Jesus says, quiet, be still. Okay, so Jesus napping, all right? I can't lay down here, but he's napping. Disciples yelling at him, okay? Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. And then, so Jesus probably, gets up, looks around, mass chaos, right? Storm, fish flying, boats sinking, and Jesus says, quiet, be still. And then watch what happens next, okay? Quiet, be still. Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. Whoa, okay? Jesus wakes up from his nap, sees chaos going on, waves high, wind going crazy. He just wakes up. He's probably like, what in the world, guys? What's wrong with you? Quiet, be still. And all of a sudden, waves down, wind calm. I don't know about you, but if I'm on that boat at that period of time, and he wakes up from his nap, and he tells the wind to stop, and the waves to stop, and everything calms down, I don't care what else he says the rest of the time, I'm with him. Like I'm coming here and I'm like, hey, Jesus, I'm with you. You just calm the waves and the wind, right? I'm like, hey, Jesus, I'm on your team. I'm right here. I'm following you. Whatever you want to do, I'm here. I'm here, right? Okay, so watch. Then what he says to his disciples. So he calms everything. So now the chaos is calmed down. The waves are a little lower. The wind stopped. And he says to his disciples, why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith? So Jesus says to them, he says, quiet. Everything quiets down. And then he looks at his disciples. He goes, what are you guys so afraid of? Do you still have no faith? What's wrong with you guys? I've performed this and done all this stuff, and you guys are in a mass panic over some waves and some wind. I'm over here taking a nap. You wake me up. All right? And I calmed the wind and calmed the thing for you guys, the storm, all that, it's gone. What is wrong with you guys? Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith? They, the disciples, were terrified and asked each other, who is this? Even the wind and waves obey him. Who is this? Even the wind and waves obey him. I love this story. And I love this story because I feel like this story completely relates to us in our day-to-day lives. Completely relates to us. How many times do we question God's power? Right? He's the Son of God. How many times do we question his power? Just like the disciples did in that boat. How many times do we lack faith by worrying? We love to worry, don't we? We love to worry. But how many times do we lack faith by worrying? Just like those disciples did in that boat. They were worried about everything else. They had Jesus right there with them the whole time. I don't know about you, but if Jesus is right there with me the whole time in the boat, and he gets up and he just calms everything, like I said, I'm following him. That's it, right there. Right there. How many times do we lack faith by being afraid of something? Just like they were afraid of that storm in that boat. We still do the same thing today. Thousands of years later, we still do the same things. We still worry, we still lack faith, and we still are afraid of things. We question God's power, even today, just like the disciples did thousands of years ago. And Jesus calmly, the whole time, we're worrying about something. Maybe it's something in your workplace. Maybe it's something at school, right? Maybe it's some family situation you have that you just constantly worry about. Or maybe it's some friend relationship thing that you have that you constantly worry about. How many times do we do that? How many times do we worry and worry and worry and we're afraid of something and we just don't give it over to God? And the whole time, God's sitting right there saying, hey, I got it. I got it. Just bring it to me. The whole time, he just wants you to wake him up out of that boat and say, Jesus, I need you. Jesus, I'm going through this. Jesus, I'm worrying about this. Jesus, I'm concerned about this. Help me, Jesus. That's what he wants you to do. And he's right there waiting for you, saying, hey, I got it. Don't worry. Don't be afraid. Don't lack faith because I have almighty power. I am the Son of God. I'm right here waiting on you. I got it. And I think that story, that little story right there, really relates to our day-to-day lives with Jesus. He's right there. And he's got it. I don't want to bring up any bad memories, or I don't want to bring up anything that, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, we'll see. I got to bring up this, though, okay? So, UVA, I'm sorry, I had to say it. We got this basketball tournament going on right now, right? And we got two teams, Loyola, Chicago, and Michigan, in the Final Four. And then we'll have two more teams today. Winner of, Texas Tech and Villanova, and then the winner of Duke and Kansas will join those two teams in the Final Four. Oh, we got some people. Yeah, all right, good, all right. So we got the basketball tournament going on. Well, I know, it feels like a long time ago, about a week ago, all right? UVA lost this game. Okay? Now, I have to bring this up for a certain reason, though, okay? So don't get mad yet, all right? I really like UVA's basketball coach. Tony Bennett's a really good guy. He's just a good, solid guy. And I'll bring the story up because I thought this was really, really cool. After the game, UVA lost a game they definitely shouldn't have lost, right? It was like first time ever happened. You guys know, I don't have to tell the story. So, all right, so they lost this game, and they interview Tony Bennett, the coach for UVA, after the game. And sometimes one of the hardest interviews you can do from a coaching standpoint is right after a game, especially after you lose. Like, there's a lot of times you can say things that you probably shouldn't say and, make excuses, stuff like that. But I thought he handled himself really, really well, okay? So the interview said, what did you tell your guys in the locker room after the game, after the loss, okay? And they only lost, this is, I think, the third loss. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's the third loss all season long. That's awesome. Number one in the country for a long time, right? Okay? So he said, what do you tell your guys after the loss? And here's what he said. Here's what he told his guys. He said, I told my guys we had a historic season. Most wins in ACC history, won ACC by several games, won the ACC tournament, and became the first number 1 seed to lose to a number 16 seed. And we have to deal with that. Now catch this. This is what he said to his guys. Just like life, there are a lot of great things that happen and tough things that happen, but we have to deal with them both the right way. I think part of our problem today is we as a culture don't deal with things the right way. We just don't sometimes. We like to make excuses, right? We like to make excuses. We like to blame others, okay? We like to talk bad about others to build ourselves up. And we love to worry. We love to worry. And if you don't do that, you probably know somebody that does that, right? You probably know somebody that makes excuses or blames others or talk bad when things don't go their way, right? And UVA could have made all the excuses in the world. He could have gone in there and blamed this, blamed that. He could have gone in there and talked bad about the other team to build themselves up. He could have gone in there and blamed blame the refs or this, that, or whatever. He could have done any of those things, right? But he didn't. And I thought that was really cool how he handled talking to his team. But we love to do that as a culture sometimes. And now we don't just can do that person to person, like to each other. We can put it on the internet and put it on social media and complain to the world, right? My gosh, we complain to the world, right? You guys have seen those probably posts before. I don't have Facebook, but I'm guessing there's posts out there where you're like, oh my gosh, you shouldn't say that on Facebook. That was a good idea, right? So we can do that like worldwide now, not just person to person. Jesus is saying to us, just like in the boat, why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith? Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith? When something doesn't turn out the way we want it to, when something is great and turns out the way exactly we want it to, but something, is tough and hard, and it just doesn't work out the way you want it to, Jesus is saying to us, why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith? Jesus is the Son of God, and we need to have faith in that, and not be afraid, but lean on Him through the things that go our way and the things that don't. And my gosh, as Christ followers, if we can't handle things the right way, we should be the example, right? People should look at us and be the example of how to handle things the right way. Because if we can't handle things the right way, we can't expect the world to. Because a lot of times the world's not going to. As Christ followers, we've got to be the example and show people how to handle things the right way. Jesus is the Son of God. In your notes, this refers to Jesus as God Himself, which means He has the power to do anything. Anything. So Jesus is the Son of Man, and Jesus is the Son of God. Last one. We're going to go pretty quick here through the last one. I know. It's almost lunchtime. All right? Jesus is the Son of Man. Jesus is the Son of God. And number 3 in your notes, Jesus is the Messiah. Jesus is the Messiah. We're going to wait and look at this verse here in a second. Let me read you definitions in the dictionary of Messiah. Number 1, the promised deliverer of the Jewish nation prophesied in the Hebrew Bible. Number 2, a leader or savior of a particular group or cause. Billy Graham wrote this article, posted this article, wrote this article, and it's titled, The Glory of Christ, 5 Ways He's the Messiah. 5 ways he's the Messiah. And he used this verse. He was foreknown before the foundation of the world, but was made manifest in the last times for the sake of you. 1 Peter 1:20. Jesus, and this is what Billy Graham wrote, Jesus is in fact unique. There are numerous things that set him apart from other religions, with biblical prophecy and proof to back up each of them. From the very beginning, God had a plan. And through hundreds of prophecies in the Old Testament, God prepared the world for the coming of his Son. Jesus really did live to die for the sins of humanity. And here's 5 prophecies. These are 5 prophecies that Billy Graham kind of wrote about. 5 prophecies that were written in the Old Testament and came true in the New Testament. And I'm not going to read all the Old Testament verses, but I will refer to them. Okay? First one, Jesus was born in Bethlehem. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, and that is referred to in Micah 5:2. And obviously, Jesus was born in Bethlehem. All right? Second one, Jesus was born of a virgin. That was prophesied in Isaiah 7:14. Okay? Years later, Jesus born of a virgin. Number 3, Jesus was rejected by his people in Psalms 118, 22 to 23. We obviously rejected him because we killed him. Right? Okay? That prophecy came true. Number 4, Jesus suffered with and for sinners. Prophesied in Isaiah 53:12, that obviously happened. He suffered for and with us. Number 5, Jesus performed miracles. Isaiah 35:5-6. Jesus obviously performed miracles. He performed miracle after miracle after, and actually all the miracles he performed aren't even probably in here. But he definitely performed miracles. Those 5 prophecies came through. Here's the crazy thing about this. Do you know that those things were written 700 years? Some 700 years before Jesus. Isn't that crazy? That kind of blow your mind a little bit? That'd be like me standing here today saying, hey, this is going to happen, and then 700 years later, it actually happens. Like my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren wouldn't be here, maybe more after that, right? 700 years later. These are prophesied. These are written in the Old Testament, and then 700 years later, Jesus comes along and fulfills them all. That to me is crazy. Here's the other crazy thing. There are more than 300 other prophecies that Jesus fulfilled with 100% accuracy. He didn't kind of fulfill them. He didn't sort of fulfill them. 100% accuracy, he fulfilled them. Over 300 prophecies. My gosh. So Jesus prophesied, this was written some 700 years before Jesus. And then 700 years later, Jesus comes around and fulfills over 300 and some prophecies, 100% accurate. How do you not believe in Jesus? My gosh. What more proof do you need? Over 300 prophecies, 700 years later. He fulfills them all. Total accuracy. I don't know how you don't believe in Jesus. How do people walk around and not believe in Jesus after hearing that? What's the percentages of us saying one thing is 700 years later it happening? Much less over 300. Wow, that should blow your mind. That should blow your mind. God promised he would send a Savior to the world, and he did, and that was Jesus. In your notes, final thing. This refers to Jesus as the one who was predicted to come and save the world in the Old Testament. Over 300 things written in the Old Testament, prophesied. Boom, Jesus comes, fulfills them all. He is the Son of Man. He is the Son of God. And my gosh, Jesus is the Messiah. He is the Messiah. I want you to look at the first Mark, the very first verse there, almost done. And I just want you to look how this Mark starts out. Okay, as we're looking through Mark here. Look how Mark starts out. The beginning of the good news about Jesus, the Messiah, the Son of God. I just love how it starts out. Basically, right away in Mark, it says, look, Jesus is Messiah, and he is the Son of God. Right away. First verse in there. Let me tell you something else, too, church, as we kind of conclude here in a second. Jesus is the Son of Man, is the Son of God, and is the Messiah. And when you believe that, when you truly believe that he is those 3 things, it should change your life. It should immediately change how you see things. It should change how you do things. It should change what you say. It should change how you act. It should change how you handle situations. It should change your perspective on everything. Everything in your life when you believe in Jesus. See, when you believe he's the Son of Man, you believe he came here and died on the cross for our sins and rose again 3 days later. When you believe he's the Son of God, he has that power that he can do anything he wants, anytime he wants. And you believe he's the Messiah, the one that was prophesied about and came and saved us for our sins. That should change your perspective in life completely. And if it doesn't, you may want to evaluate that, because it should. Your life should totally be changed, should be transformed by Jesus' power. So make sure it's doing that in your life. Make sure you're looking at things the way he would. Make sure you're handling situations the way he would. Make sure you're dealing with problems and day-to-day life the way he would. Focus on him, not the world. When you worry about things, when you go through things in life that are tough, that aren't easy, focus on him, not the world. Not what the world has to say, not what the news has to say, not what anybody else has to say. Focus on him. Let him lead you. Let him guide you. Lean on him. Because he is the Son of Man, the Son of God, and the Messiah. I want to close with this. Mark 8. We'll go back to Mark 8. I'm going to close. I promise this last thing. Mark 8. And I want to look at verse 27. Looking at the identity of Jesus today. Who is Jesus? I'll close with this. Jesus and his disciples went on to the villages around somewhere. On the way, Jesus asked them, who do people say I am? This is Jesus talking. Who do people say I am? They, the people, replied, well, some say John the Baptist. Others say Elijah. And still others, one of the prophets? Then Jesus says, but what about you? What about you? Who do you say I am? Who do you say I am? Peter answered, you are the Messiah. Peter knew who Jesus was. Do you know? Do you know who Jesus is? Peter did. Because see, I think the same Jesus' answer is asking us the same things today. He's asking every single one of us, do you know who I am? Who do you say I am? Put your name in there. Josh, who do you say I am? And we have to have an answer. Who do you say Jesus is? Peter knew. Do you know?